If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. This is one of my favorite quotes from Nikola Tesla. So today's episode is going to be how these vibrations affect us in our daily lives, in our body, physically, mentally, spiritually. And I have a special guest today I'm so excited about, who works in this world, who has created curriculums and trainings, and works with these kind of energies and sound therapies. You're listening to Anatomy for Life with Crystal and Nicole, where we discuss the anatomy behind the most popular physical and spiritual practices so you can get the most out of these modalities on your healing journey. So welcome to my podcast, Anatomy for Life. Today I have one of my really great friends, Nicole, joining me. Hi, Nicole.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Not to be confused with my partner in crime, Nicole, who's
who's
usually here interviewing people. It's still me and Nicole.
Yes. Different Nicole.
Different Nicole. So as you guys are used to, we're going to go ahead and close our eyes for a couple seconds. If you're in a place that's safe to do so, go ahead and join us to clear your mind. So palms down, rerouting all energy channels back towards your heart. Inhale through your nose and exhale through your nose. Continue like this, and on each inhale, feel the energy circulate in a closed circuit within your body. All the energy you get directly from Source is for yourself and your vital organs. Feel spaces beginning to open in your body. Especially notice your joints, your shoulders, your hips, your elbows, your knees, your wrists, your ankles, and eventually your neck. We'll take a deep inhale through our nose next, and exhale through your mouth. Blink your eyes open to come back.
I'm a little too relaxed tonight.
Well, Nicole actually brought me a special present today, so I'm going to be relaxed too.
I did.
Nicole serves kava and does a lot of events, yin and kava, and I'll talk about all the things she does, but she brought me this special kava drink today.
And it's one no one else has had from me yet.
Really?
So, I mean, no, me and Abigail haven't had that one at any of our events yet, so.
I really love it. So to give you a little background on Nicole, she's been practicing yoga for the last 13 years and teaching for 10. Throughout the last decade, she taught at a variety of places like community rec centers, schools, parks, retreats, studios, and even church youth activities. She's hosted a few of her own yoga retreats in the past, which are amazing, wonderful. I have a lot of friends that have attended them, and they just love that. And enjoyed being a guest teacher at other people's retreats. So right now, she's the official yoga instructor for Into the Wild, which is a women's adventure and retreat company. And my heart was really excited for you when I saw you make that move.
Thank you.
What a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
She also offers events. I personally go to as many of her events as I can.
Oh.
At various yoga studios, and she loves teaching weekly hot vinyasa classes at Freedom Yoga. And she's also a sound bath meditation guide. So she offers sound bath meditations. That's kind of why, it's kind of the direction we want to take today. Private homes, retreats, corporate offices, schools, yoga studios. On a personal note, she's married to the love of her life, has 2 beautiful kids, loves to paddleboard, hike, travel, river hop, spend time with friends, and sit in tea ceremony. I think it's also interesting because I'm a military wife. I don't know, is it okay to say this?
Yeah, of
She's
course.
a firefighter's wife.
I'm a firefighter wife and proud.
So I feel like we wear these badges.
We do wear badges.
Emotional badges that we can relate to each other on.
In that way, yes.
Yeah, is there anything you want to add or speak to?
Yeah, I mean, I I've lived in Utah for a little over 20 years now. I grew up in California, but it's weird.
I forgot that.
Yeah, I've lived in Utah now longer than California. It's weird. And I know you did not grow up here either.
We're Utahns now.
We're Utahns now, and I love Utah. So just a little backstory on what got me into yoga. I had a major neck surgery when my daughter was a baby. So I had a neck injury for probably 2 to 3 years before she was born. I had a herniated disc in my neck. It was at C5-6. And I spent a few years getting a lot of MRIs, a lot of physical therapy, a lot of cortisone shots, and I was just in a lot of chronic pain. I had rheumopathy down my arm. I had constant, these were like migraines. Like they say it's tension from the herniation, but you're throwing up, you can't function, like it's awful. And so I ended up making the decision to get neck surgery. I met with like 3 neurosurgeons. Long story short, I loved the neurosurgeon that helped my neck. I got an artificial disc put in my neck. So me and you have talked about this before. Yeah. But still, not a lot of people know that about me, and I think maybe I should be a little more open about it sometimes. I try to be in my classes.
Yeah, because it's so relatable, and it's like, if she overcame this, then I can too.
Sometimes, as much as I like to talk, sometimes I can get shy, and I don't ever want it to sound like I'm just talking about myself, because I like to listen to other people's stories, but I realize it's okay. Like, I need to keep sharing.
You're a great listener.
Oh, thanks, Crystal. Yeah. I did not get my neck fused, and that's totally different. So I got the artificial disc, and I have much more mobility in my neck because of that. I did not have to put that pressure of a fusion on the vertebrae above or below. That being said, in my recovery, my neurosurgeon, because he's so cool, was actually like, you need to start supplementing your physical therapy with yoga. Like, find the right kind of yoga. It's going to help you. Because it was actually scary how much pain medication I was still on at one point, and how many muscle relaxers I was taking. And I didn't have a problem yet, but I was on my way to possibly having a problem with some of those pills, Yeah. And so I was really grateful for his advice. I got off the narcotics. I started going to this cute little yoga studio. I honestly found it by chance, because at the time, nobody I knew did yoga. I didn't know much about it yet. And thankfully, the studio I walked into, they had a lot of Anusara influences, which is very alignment-based, as you know. They were so knowledgeable about the anatomy of the body. They asked me immediately about my neck. They really took care of me, and they had a lot of gentle yoga classes there that they offered. So that is where my love for gentle yoga and also restorative yoga comes from. And just to give you kind of like a reference, the weight that my neck could hold wasn't even the weight of my head at that time. Like, my neck, those muscles had been cut into in the front of my neck. So they don't go in through the back, they go in through the front.
Right.
And it's the tiniest little incision, like, you can barely see it. It's one of the creases of my neck. But it's crazy how that can affect your upper body strength. And so at the time, supplementing with both the yoga and the physical therapy, let me back up. Physical therapy obviously just wasn't enough for whatever reason. But after about 3 months, I would say, of consistent yoga practice, they tested the weight of my neck again and what it can hold and carry, and it was up to 16. So then I was able to carry pounds. So then I was able to hold more than the weight of my head.
Yeah, because a normal fun anatomy facts. A normal human head, weighs 8 to 10 pounds or something?
Yeah, and my poor head, I was testing about around 10 pounds with my neck before that, and they're like, you're going to get there, it just takes time. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that it was the yoga that really helped me in that.
Cool.
So, yeah.
What a beautiful entrance, what a beautiful story.
Yeah.
And life-changing event to have that practice.
Yeah, have that practice, and then obviously I went for the physical at first, and I became addicted to the emotional, mental well-being that I was receiving from my yoga practice.
That's amazing. So is that when you took a yoga teacher training?
Yeah, so I practiced for I'm trying to remember. It had to have been maybe barely a year and a half. And then I went into that studio, held a 200-hour training, and I had no intention to teach ever. I just really loved it so much. I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to know more. And I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for that training. There was like a group of 8 of us or 9 of us. It was pretty small. We would meet one weekend a month for about 8 to 9 months until it was all over. And yeah, I mean, I started teaching before I even finished. I was close to finishing, but yeah, I started teaching before I even finished. And I never thought I was going to teach, but it's funny how we evolve.
Yeah.
And we're like, I want to share this.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing is you're like, look what this did for me. And then you can't really keep your mouth shut because you're like... Yeah,
and I think the place I ended up teaching was the perfect place for it. It was just the Provo Rec Center. The new rec center had just opened. They were looking for instructors. I thought my brother-in-law is actually a firefighter for Provo. So he was the one that told me, because they'll go work out there. And he's like, you should go put in for a yoga instructor. And I was like, I don't know. So I did it, and they hired me. And I met the most amazing people. I taught there for almost 2 years. It gave so many people the opportunity to try yoga that might not walk into a yoga studio or maybe not be able to afford a yoga studio.
Yeah.
So
or who might feel uncomfortable at a yoga studio.
Yes.
I feel like, yeah, and that's a beautiful facility, but those rec classes are so approachable.
They are, and there was actually some really amazing teachers there, some awesome people that I met that had been teaching for a really long time, and they loved teaching at the rec center. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm having this weird memory because I have some neighbors who used to love practicing down there, and they always loved their instructor. I'm wondering if you were the instructor.
I don't know, but that would make my heart happy if I was.
I've heard that over the last 10 years or so, and that's funny.
I taught 2 evenings a week there. Maybe.
Because we didn't know each other back then.
No, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I think I might have, maybe I'd been living in Arizona too.
Okay.
During your early teaching years. That's where I had my early teaching years. We're similar ages. Yeah. So when did things evolve beyond yoga?
So things evolved beyond yoga years later. It took a while, and I actually took like around a 3-year break from teaching yoga after I left the rec center after a few years because I needed to focus my energy with my kids and elsewhere for a little while. And then I came back, and I felt like once I came back, it was like all these other doors opened so fast, you know? I don't know. It was like I took one step back and then all these steps forward again.
That's a good lesson. That's a good lesson for our friends right now or people listening who are being called for a break.
Yeah.
'Cause I've done that several times, and you've done that now.
I've done that.
And when you're ready to come back, it will be abundant.
It will, and it's when you're ready, and you'll know when you're ready.
Yeah.
It's not something that ever goes away and just leaves you forever.
No, that's good.
And I think it's healthy for us as yoga instructors, you know, so many of our friends, right, they offer Reiki, or maybe they're an herbalist, or maybe the anatomy trainings, they do teacher trainings. It is okay to take time off.
Yeah. Twice in the last 10 years, I took 2 years or more off of teaching in a row.
And I'm sure it was much needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. And both times, you feel a little nervous when you enter that phase. Mm-hmm. And both times it was so necessary for my inner growth. And also both times when you come back, it's like what you just said. It's so much all at once. When it's ready in time, it will be poured upon you.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I came back, I discovered the magical world of sound healing and sound baths.
Okay.
And I discovered that through, you know, really, I had heard crystal singing bowls before because a lot of yoga teachers had them and would play them at the end of class in Shavasana.
Yeah.
But I had never been to a sound bath, you know, officially. And it just blew my mind. I mean, my first experience in my first sound bath, I loved it so much, but the funny part was there were certain parts that I also didn't love. So I was like, is that weird? Because
to speak the truth, warn the people.
To speak the truth, because anybody was talking about how great the whole thing was, and it really was so lovely, but you're kind of afraid to say inside, I'm like, but there was a few instruments that I actually didn't love. It was really hard for me to listen to, you know. And it wouldn't be until later that I would have more discussions and find out, oh, this is a normal thing. Not every sound resonates with everybody. And depending on your day and your mood, it's going to be different for you.
And the reasons too, right? Why sound frequency can elicit specific emotions and reactions in your body, right?
That is perfect. I want to read this quote. It's one of my favorites. It's by Joshua Leeds.
And just so you guys know, she's flipping through her sound teacher training manual.
Yeah,
right?
it's my manual that I put a lot of, it was a labor of love.
Oh my gosh.
But Joshua Leeds says, sound touches us and influences us and our emotions like no other source of input or expression. It is the stuff of tone and timbre, silence and noise. And he is a sound healer, sound worker. There are so many different titles that people in this field have. I don't feel like one is right or wrong. I just thought that was an interesting fact too, as I would get into this and meet people like, well, what's a sound healer? Well, what's a sound worker? Well, what's a sound, therapist? Like all these things. So that was interesting as well. But I just kind of started to dive deep after those first few sound bath experiences. I'm like, I want to do this. I ordered a set of crystal singing bowls for myself, and it's like there was no looking back. I just kept diving deeper and deeper and wanting more instruments. And then I decided I want to take my own training. I want to have a mentor. I want to get, certified in this. It was actually really hard for me to find anyone around here that would talk to me about it.
I had the same experience.
Yeah.
I had to dig for a while, almost more than half a year.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't, I did learn some things from the lady I found who was quite far away, but I didn't feel fulfilled in the depths of all of that. And I think it's a niche where there are more people stepping up in that area, but it's also such an intuitive space, and your training is well needed. It's needed, and it's well thought out and created, and I'm really excited for it. One thing I wanted to say about your sound baths in particular, doing the modalities we do, I think we have a couple more frames of reference or sensitivities to different nuances of modalities, right? Meaning like there are these layers we become aware of that are not always spoken to, or people might not always notice. And so there are some things I've noticed about your sound baths and the interplay between the silence, the re-entering the sound, and then the exiting the sound into silence. I've never heard anybody do like you do.
Oh, thank you. That makes me happy, and and it's a hard thing, right? Like you said, I do love the term. So many people, especially where we live, offer sound baths and sound healing. And I don't ever want to say there's a right or wrong way, because like you said, it can be intuitive. People have their own instruments that call to them. But that is one thing that I have really learned from my mentor when I took his training. We don't utilize silence enough as a tool. So if you think about it, right, the resonance is a real thing. The vibrations that are being sent out are a real thing that are connecting with our bodies. And my teacher explained it to me like this. Like, you see words on a page, and why do the words have a space in between them? Gives our brain a minute to process the word we just read before, right? These aren't run-on sentences either. They're split up into paragraphs. We have this little space between the word or the sentence. Same with sound. So silence is a source of information. If we just keep playing sound after sound after sound after sound and not giving our bodies a chance to absorb it in the silence, we're missing out on so much.
Wow, that was beautiful. You put words to what I was feeling and didn't know necessarily why. But yeah, the sounds are amazing, and the constituents are amazing. The way you hold space is amazing. The way you can feel that it's geared towards what you felt in the room people need. But the contrast is something that I have learned to value in the last 4 or 5 years. of the modalities I've picked up and balanced, and between energy work and self-meditation and shadow work, all these things, it is that exactly what you spoke to that I think was really missing in my life personally. And I think that does apply to a lot of people and a lot of listeners. And I think it's something that's a common community theme. I don't think it's just me.
No.
And so that's beautiful how you explain that with the sound. And that's also where you said the self-reflection and messages come through. And so if you're bombarding and don't give people the space for those things to surface either, and I think that maybe puts words to the thing I feel in your sound baths, but I didn't know why. That's cool.
Good, I'm glad.
I wonder if you'd be willing to tell us a little bit about how the sound works on our bodies and things.
Yes, and so sound, the biggest thing that I like to focus, I shouldn't say the biggest thing, one of the big things is our brain patterns. This was a big reason why I took our training too. You hear a lot of things, but sometimes we don't know what is myth or what is something that maybe somebody, they have a good heart and this is what they believe in, but maybe they're not even sure where they heard it or where it really came from.
You're speaking to the right person here. Please tie it back down to facts and anatomy and science for me, and I will believe.
Right? So let's talk about anatomy and the brain patterns that our brains are in, right? And as you know, and I know many people know this, like we are not in a meditative, slower brain wave pattern enough. So one really cool thing I can say about sound baths or sound healing is binaural beats or monaural beats. Now we hear a lot about binaural beats that come from the crystal singing bowls, and it's this, I'm not going to go into a bunch of detail because it would be too long, but they basically create this phantom beat. So binaural means it's coming from two sources. You have two crystal bowls. Mm-hmm. And then this third phantom beat is created, and that third beat is what your brain is picking up on. Depending on how fast that frequency is, it's going to help your brain go into that brain pattern because of something called rhythmic entrainment. So that is the effect of one system on another.
So when you hear that third beat that emerges from the co-creation of playing the two different tones, that's what your brain picks up on?
Yes.
And what does that do for your brain?
So your brain, let's pretend that your brain is in a higher state, one of your higher patterns. Let me look this up really fast so I don't
high beta waves,
mess it up.
Beta waves
Yeah. Let's pretend like it's in gamma, which is like the fastest.
Yes.
So it's going to depend on how long you're hearing this binaural beat too, right? I'm not sure it's going to do much for you if you just hear it for like a few seconds.
Okay.
Your body has to have a few minutes, some time to sync with that beat, with your breath, with the mind, and that's what it's going to pick up on. Now, most of the time, when you purchase like crystal singing bowls or Tibetan bowls, I shouldn't say most, some of the time, you can see what frequency that is at and what your brain pattern is going to pick up on. Like my Tibetan bowl, for example, those create monaural beats. It can come from one source. And where I purchased them from, they have the frequency listed and like what brainwave that's going to fall into.
Cool. Yeah.
But I mean, we know anyways by looking up the brain waves, what frequencies they are.
And you can look at that too. So you can choose 432, perfect pitch, or you can do that for what you need. And then once it drops into that frequency, does it begin to decrease in frequency?
It does begin to decrease. And the thing to know about like binaural beats for like crystal singing bowls is let's pretend you have a 432 bowl. You need a bowl that's a different frequency, or it's not going to create a binaural beat. Because it has to have a difference in frequencies, and your brain picks up on that difference.
Okay.
So it's not picking up on, it's not changing your brainwave pattern just by listening to a 432 or just by listening to a 440. It's when you have two frequencies, the difference between the two is what will sync with your brain pattern.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I know there's a lot of talk about your energetic centers, right? And the rest of your body and your chakras. So
your chakras, yeah.
How do they work on balancing your systems, your body systems?
So I might have a little bit different belief there in things that I have studied for myself.
Yeah.
I know that one of the biggest things you hear is like, this is the F bowl, so it's going to help with your heart chakra. And I'm not saying that's not true. But I do think that you are putting a limit on the value of that instrument by saying it's just going to help your heart chakra. We all feel these different bowls in different areas of our bodies, or an instrument, period. And so whatever you need help on, or where you're imbalanced, that's where your body's going to pick up on it, and you're going to get hopefully some type of energy movement and release there. But maybe you might not either. It's totally up to that person.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely like to, in general, think of things as whole systems, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you're looking at one specific thing, that's never the full story. In sound therapy and energy work and yoga, right? Mm-hmm. My hip hurts. Okay, you sit there and do pigeon pose for 10 minutes and then you're healed.
Right.
You just can't really pick apart. Like you said, does the F bowl correlate with a frequency that correlates with that energetic chakra? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And does pigeon pose stretch your hip? Absolutely. But some of these patterns that have been created that would cause grief or repression of emotion or pain in your hip or whatnot is not a pieced out part of your body system either. Mm-hmm. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I've often thought I knew, and maybe I did know, or maybe it was a friend, I knew specifically what they were going through and what part of their body needed to be balanced. And if that bowl was played in a session, or something was created specifically, say it's their tummy, and sometimes they will report hearing that vibrate through their head. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, oh, I felt it in my tummy and that healed everything. Because I think there's just a lot of subtleties underlying what you spoke to, which you know from your experience and your knowledge. Because if it is something that's a whole body system, it's something in your lymphatic system, and heavens, is your brain, right?
Right.
Is affecting the rest of your systems as well. And so if that's where it is and you play the heart chakra bowl, it definitely has, I liked how you said it, underplays or undervalues
We're limiting its value.
Yeah, you're limiting its value and effectiveness of that instrument, because it absolutely can connect to other things and places in your body and heal those things. But that being said, I definitely have intentions. Like if I've themed a class around releasing the hips and the throat chakra, I definitely will take those bowls and those frequencies and give them a big accent, you know, in the sound bath after, while infusing it with those intentions. And, what comes to pass comes to pass. But there's a little bit of an interplay between that, and I think that's also a good starting place. Yeah. So like when you begin teaching people you certify people in sound therapy, right?
And real quick on that, I think there's some confusion too, like in the sound healing, sound bath world of where you go to school for that. I don't get it, right? Is this like a college degree? Like, do you have to go to this specific school? I've done a lot of my own research and talked to some other teachers that have their own schools, which is also hard to do. It's hard to get people to talk to you about this stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
They're similar to yoga. There is no government recognized degree, like college degree in sound healing. Okay. All these sound healing schools are beautiful, and they have their own courses and own curriculums. So you just choose where you want to go, and you get certified in their school, in their curriculum. Okay. So my course that I created, you will be certified in my course.
In Nicole's course.
Yeah. But that's no different from anyone else. I am certified from the Sound Medicine Academy, where I took my training from my teacher. I am certified in his course. And he was the one to talk to me about that and the one to teach me that. So
it's going to be a very intuitive choice. Like, where does your heart lead you? Who do you want to learn from?
It does.
Who do you feel called to?
It does. And it's hard to find somebody, too, that will talk to you about it one-on-one.
Well, we're lucky to get you now.
Thank
you. So to circle back, I think it's a good place to start, right? To learn about the chakra system.
Yes,
learn about
that
the
was
brain,
your question.
And then, and do know that you're doing things for an intention and a purpose, right?
Yeah, just, you can buy maybe just one bowl and you start playing that bowl. And it's really important to connect with your instrument, whatever it is you choose to buy, whatever calls to you, whatever resonates with you, you're going to help that resonate to other people.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I think not focusing as much on like, oh, I should get a heart chakra bowl or I should get a G chakra bowl. Listen to it. See how it makes you feel. Don't be hung up on what chakra it is.
Yes, I love that advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wonder if you'd be willing to name some of the other instruments that you use in your
so
baths.
I have my crystal singing bowls. I have my Tibetan singing bowls that I actually purchased from my sound mentor in New York. He has his own business selling his bowls, and I love them. So I got my bowls from him. I have a buffalo drum that I love. I use the ocean drum, koshi chimes, my wind gong that I love so much. I have a little tongue drum. It's like a mini one. I would love to get a bigger one. I think that is the basis of my collection right now, but I'm always adding to it.
What's the benefit of the gong? When you spoke earlier about sometimes people having adverse reactions to some of the sounds, I think the biggest perpetrator of that feeling
is the gong.
is the gong.
It is so true. It is so true. So anybody listening that's like feeling validated right now, like, yes, it's not just me. But there's also people that absolutely love the gong. They're gong junkies. A gong is a naturally dissonant instrument. So dissonant, we kind of, what am I trying to say? We associate that with a little more like uncomfortableness or unpleasantness, but it doesn't mean that it has to sound awful, if that makes sense. It's just not sounding harmonious.
Right, so like if you're a musician, like that's my background, you're playing the notes right next to each other, right? You're either playing a D and a D flat or even a D and an E, and so it's like, and harmonies are, like thirds, fourths, fifths.
Yeah.
And so dissonance has its place. If you're a musician, it's quite beautiful.
I love that you know this.
People, when you throw those dissonance in the right way, in the right phrases, right?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's accentuating. But what
can
you said
also
is
be
right. If you go up to the piano, like my kids do, and they're just pressing the two keys next to each other over and over and over and over, I will have a similar reaction like I've had, like I used to have in the beginning with the gong.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for volume levels. We need to be really careful with considering who is in our audience and the hearing process. It's very delicate, and so you can really play the gong, in my opinion, much too loudly. But you can get that benefit of some dissonance and a really beautiful gong sound, with some gentler playing. Not to say you can't, bump the volume up a little bit, but I have been to some where that was my experience in one of my first sound baths. That particular one I really didn't enjoy. It was only one of the gongs though. The other two I really liked. Yeah. And it was one, when that was played, it was just played so loud and it made me feel so awful. And a lot of people will tell you, well, that's energy you need to release. Like it's stored in the body, you're feeling awful because it needs to get out. And I think that's true to a point. But if you're laying there tensed up, wondering when something's going to be over, there's no healing that's happening, in my opinion.
It comes back again to your intuitive sense. of the contrast, right?
Yeah.
Because in any healing modality, and it's like you push too hard and then you just cause the resistance. So it's a very, one thing about sound healing is I feel like it's a very co-creative feedback system, like if you were giving someone a massage, right? And Nicole's really great at feeling and tapping into the energy in the room and people around her. And so I think that lends itself, especially if you want to be a sound healer, develop those skills. And I think the rest comes along beautifully with, you feel that feedback. Are you the one that told me the funny story about the person standing in the giant gong when they were
Yeah.
It was the too much story.
It was, and my teacher shared this with me, and he was actually standing in a very big Tibetan bowl, was what it was.
Okay.
Like a huge bowl that you could just stand in. And there's the sound master, the sound healer. I can't remember what this man, what his title was, but just banging. And this poor man standing in it, he's like shaking and he's in so much pain, and you can see it. I've seen the video. You can see the pain in his face. And this Tibetan bowl player, this sound master, and he's saying it has to get out. Every time he bangs it, it has to get out. And the poor guy is just in there crying, and we're like, what? Me and my teacher had a good discussion about this. And what has to get out? Like, you're torturing this poor man. What has to get out?
Hey, all different ways of approaching your healing.
So that is not my approach, but hey, I might try it sometime just to see what it feels like if I'm ever presented the opportunity.
See what comes out.
Yeah, I'll see what comes out. Maybe just tears from wanting it to be over.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Yeah. I love the power in that. I love the power in music and vibration. And it's also something interesting to not take for granted and notice. Right?
Yeah, and let me clarify. That didn't happen anywhere around here. That was somewhere very far away. Okay. My teacher lives somewhere very far away. It has nothing to do with Utah, just for all of our Utah listeners.
There you go. Yeah, you don't be stressed about going to a sound bath locally.
Right.
I'm going to get put in a Tibetan bowl.
Yeah, unless it's some secret thing I don't know about that's happening here. But
I haven't seen it either.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's just a good reminder to be aware. Like they always said to us as kids, what you listen to is going to affect you.
Yeah.
The sound, the vibration, and that's from anything to music, to sound healing, to the ways people are speaking around you, the volumes they're speaking at.
Yeah.
The things you participate in that way are so powerful.
Yeah, it's the like you were saying, the meaning and intention you put behind it. I often think about my daughter, who I love very much, at that age, the 14-year-old, teenage sassiness, which I totally had when I was her age. And I say to her a lot lately, it's not what you're saying, it's your tone, right? Because she'll be like, what? How did that hurt your feelings? I just said, X, Y, Z. And I'm like, it was your tone. And it just reminds me how perceptive and also sensitive our ears and brains can be as human beings to tone.
Yes, I think I just said that last night.
Did you?
To my teenager.
Yeah.
Luckily, she doesn't listen to my podcast, but it's something in your vibration, right? And a lot of times we call it attitude, but it's just frequency and vibration. I'm remembering a study I wanted to mention, see what your thoughts are on this, 6 or 7 years ago. And I didn't print it up, so I might I'll link all our stuff in the show notes, and if I find it, I'll link it for you, where they were doing vibrational readings off of inanimate objects. So there's the one thing that we do know, and I know you know about this, it might even be in your training, where you can see the coherence versus the incoherence that can be created in water molecules or in sand based on vibration.
Yeah.
So if you don't know about that, you can have a vibration played at different coherent frequencies, and geometric patterns emerge. Mm-hmm. The same thing happens in water, in gelatin, or some kind of viscous, molecular makeup, with vibration attached with intention, like we said. So if it's a coherent vibrations correlate with peace, love, harmony, joy. And then incoherent vibrations, you can actually measure the frequency of like anger, depression, guilt, things like that. And they're generally incoherent frequencies, and they make incoherent patterns. So why this study, and maybe that's new to you guys, and if that is, go down that rabbit hole. But this study was even more interesting to me because they were measuring the bounce back of frequencies off inanimate objects. So what I remember was a potato chip bag. And they had this bag like in a vacuum. And then they bounced frequency at it, including, it evolved all the way to the end of the study where they bounced words off it or a sentence. And then the outsides of the panel measured the vibration bouncing back off of it.
Wow.
And
that's so cool.
It kept the quality. This was the result of the study, was that if they bounce the word love to the potato chip bag, when you start measuring the frequency coming off the potato chip bag, it would recorrelate to love. And they can even have instruments measuring and picking back up a sentence like, you are stupid. And then it would vibrate off the potato chip bag. And translate into, you are stupid. And so that's just a potato chip bag. So just imagine our bodies, which are, 60 to 70% viscous. Never mind the neurology that picks up, the messages, and our skin and all of the sensory type of organs and things that we have in our body. We're basically like a giant antenna. We are a receptive organ. Like our physical body is built for reading things in our environment.
And I didn't realize how much, this is maybe going to make me sound a little not smart, but I didn't realize how much of an impact sound was, like what a physical phenomenon sound is for our bodies, that you said, like our antennas and this resonance, right? It is physics. It is a physical phenomenon, and it blows my mind.
And we forget. And we wonder what's happening, but we're picking up all the signals. So even more reason why, if you can utilize this knowledge intentionally, you can create, right? You can use these teachings.
Like if I'm just going to sit there and ding a bunch of bowls, right? I mean, you can do that and it will sound nice, but just kind of like if I sit here with Crystal and I kind of look off to the wall and I'm not really looking at you or thinking about you or really talking to you, I'm just kind of looking around, we're not resonating with each other because I don't have that intention of connecting with you. Same with our instruments when we want to play them or listen to them.
I love that. So how can people take your sound training or see where you're up to and see if it calls to them?
So it is on my website. All the information is there. What the course includes, how much it costs, the length of the course, and they can reach out to me through email, my phone number, Instagram. That's all on my website to register.
What is your website?
It is NicoleTandy.com.
Okay.
It's easy to remember, yes. And what I feel like makes it unique is, and especially from a lot of feedback I've gotten from friends and acquaintances, it is hard to find in-person training for this here where we live. I know there are a few places that do it, but especially hard to find one-on-one in such an intimate setting. So we can personalize it somewhat. I just finished with actually my first client, my friend. I don't know. Sometimes I struggle with those words too. I'm like, she's my friend, but I guess technically she was my client because she hired me for this. She had one crystal singing bowl. She didn't really know about anything other than she loved it and wanted to dive deeper, right? And after she finished the course with me, like she ordered a harmonious set of crystal singing bowls. She ordered a buffalo drum. I told her to wait. I'm like, wait, let's take this course together. I have all of my instruments that we use in the course. So you can have instruments already in a collection you've built, but you want to dive deeper, understand your instruments more, know what they're doing better. A big part of it, that last part of the training, is we go over a lot of how to facilitate group sessions, if that's something that you want to do. And I offer a tea ceremony experience with my training. You get a unique hand-picked gift from me that I like to keep a little surprise, but people are the one person that's gotten it so far was very excited. I have someone else signed up to take the course. We'll start next week, and she has already been guiding sound baths, and you know her well.
I do. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure she wouldn't mind if we told you Megan is doing that.
Yeah, and it was really humbling for me. I love Megan, and we don't know each other super well, but we've been getting to know each other. Our paths have been crossing more, and I know she probably already plays beautiful sound baths because I can feel that intention from her, but she was like, I want to learn more, so I want to take this course.
And you want to learn from someone who's passionate about it and has delved deeper, because there's always some aspect, right? And there's always something there.
And I'm always learning too. Like we're all always learning, So
totally.
So yeah, I was kind of all over the place there in my explanation for that course, but you can go on my website and read all the details.
I love that. It makes so much sense, and I'm going to be on your list soon too.
Oh, thank you.
As soon as I find some space and time, and then me and Megan sound baths at our retreats.
Oh yeah.
Are just going to
next level.
You'll never come back to earth after that.
Next level. I was going to say you get a one-on-one sound session with me too.
Oh.
And that's not something I've only had that one time personally, and so that's something that's a really cool experience as well.
I don't know that I've ever had that.
That's cool.
That is so cool. On your website, does it talk about where you're also doing your events and offering tea ceremony and offering...
I need to make a page about that because it actually doesn't. But
Okay.
My next sound bath is going to be at 3B in April.
Okay.
And then I do have my very first tea ceremony event in March at Freedom. I rented the hot room, and it's going to be some tea and sound. So we'll start with about 15 minutes before tea ceremony to drop into that meditation a little deeper with the sound, and then go into our bowl tea ceremony. So
That's beautiful.
yeah, I'm excited.
This episode will air before that. So the best thing to do as far as those is probably to follow you on Instagram.
On Instagram,
so post
yeah.
that stuff.
Hopefully I'll get my events tab up soon. But right now my course tab is up on my website with all that information.
Woohoo.
So baby steps for me.
Yeah, and we were talking about that before we started our official podcast. One thing that's so beautiful about Nicole is that she's just willing to follow her heart and fully be in the spaces that call to her. Like when you show up, you show up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I love that. And we're
Thank you.
talking about the benefit in simplicity.
Yes.
And I think that just correlates so perfectly with your very specific spiritual gifts and talents in that simplicity and contrast and holding space. And
Thank you.
I love hearing all about your stuff and listening to you, but you do that very well as an active listener for all of your friends and for me.
Thank you.
And now that we've sort of talked all the way through it, I don't know that any of those things are that different. It's sort of a pervading talent.
Even this course is pretty simple. I wanted something simplistic for people. They could get started or dive deeper, and it doesn't have to be anything big and long and complicated if that's not what you want. But you might want that, and then maybe you'll take a training somewhere else that is a lot longer and, a little more. So right now my style is let's simply help people on their journey.
Yeah, and even if they just want to use it for personal use, right?
Yes, personal use. So I should have mentioned the girl, my friend Mindy that I just finished with, she has no desire right now to facilitate group sound baths. It is personal and just for her and her family. So
yes. Yeah, and even though I do that, I would say 9 times out of 10, even when I use my musical instruments, they're just for me.
Yeah, and that is, I feel underrated,
Yes. And I get them out and say, I just love being here. Are you a singer?
So I wish when I was 10 I wanted to grow up and be a singer, but no. I'm getting better at being more comfortable with chanting even.
Are you?
So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to say chanting with the singing bowls too. That's a fun
Yes.
aspect. I know a lot of beautiful singers who want to probably take your course and learn about sound therapy, and I was just thinking, and then You can add in your voice.
You can. I'm actually reading a book right now that was written by a doctor. I can't remember his name, but it's called The Healing Power of Sound. And he's diving deep in the power behind chanting with your instruments. He's an oncologist and talks a lot about his cancer patients and how much, now this didn't heal their cancer, but how much comfort and pain relief it brought them mentally and physically in that moment, and even maybe hours after of that chanting and playing a Tibetan bowl or a crystal bowl. So that's pretty cool.
Wow, that's really cool. Oh, thank you for that. Is there any message you want to leave us with, or anything else you feel like we've left uncovered before we end?
I don't feel like we've left much uncovered. I don't think so. Just that sound, I think, is such a useful tool for it's another tool for an act of surrender or a shift for us to find in our consciousness. And I'm happy to talk to you about it and that we get to share it with other people, both of us.
Yeah, I love it. What you're doing is so beautiful. And I'm just so excited for you.
Thank you.
1 million%.
Crystal. I think you're amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.